As many of you know, I have been tracking class data, population data, and all sorts of other data for Everquest, specifically for the TLPs. This has enabled me to basically see over the different expansions on the TLPs what the class population is and what people are playing and what they're switching to as each expansion hits. So without further ado, we're going to cover the most popular classes in the Kunark expansion, which is where Teak and Tormax will be starting. So whether or not you play one of these classes or try to avoid the crowd and play something unique, you'll at least know where the classes rank as far as popularity. Keep in mind that when I see some of these numbers, I tend to look at it as these are part of box groups because there is a decent amount of boxing on the TLPs. So those numbers could skew the data. But basically what this represents is how much percentage of the population each class makes of the server during the expansion. And this data is collected through the majority of the expansion at various times. So it is pretty solid data that's averaged out. There could be different peaks and dips, but on the average, these are the numbers. So starting with the most popular class on the TLPs during the Kunark era, and I imagine this is probably true during the live servers back in the day. Can you take a guess what it might be? It's kind of a boring one, but the most popular class on the Everquest TLPs during the Kunark era is the Cleric. Now the Cleric stays as one of the most popular classes up until Mercenaries come out, and when Druids and Shamans start to get a little bit better healing, this number comes down. But as far as having complete heals and the res sticks, there's just going to be so many Clerics for raids and for groups that they're going to be one of the most popular classes for quite some time. So the most popular class will be the Cleric, always a safe pick. The second most popular class will be the Monk. Monk is kind of a no-brainer. This is one of the characters that makes up a lot of my boxing DPS, simply because when you're starting out fresh on a TLP, you can use their fists for DPS and they do alright. But also they are one of the top DPS, melee DPS in the game. And in some raids they even match best in slot gear berserkers depending on the fight when berserkers are released. Monks are and always have been a really safe melee DPS pick. So the second most popular class on the TLPs during the Kunark era is Monk. And number 3, Druid. Although it says 10.6%, it was slightly below, I think 10.59, and the Monk was like 10.66%. But they're both at 10.6%, and the Druid is probably there due to the Kunark era simply for its damage shield power leveling, and the fact that it can port until we get Spires during the Luckland era, and then the guild halls come along and the Plane of Knowledge stones. Transportation is a little iffy. Now they might be, I have heard, those new personas on the TLPs which allow you to travel with a few clicks, I guess. I haven't looked into it much. So this might hurt the Druid numbers, but Druids, especially at release of each of these expansions, early on Classic, Kunark, and Vilius, they have been, cash generators for a lot of people, either to sell power leveling services or provide transportation. So this is why they are so high. This drops down significantly after Planes of Power. And the fourth most popular class during the Kunark era is the Bard. Now, whenever I see a high Bard count like this, I kind of think that it's mainly from box groups because I don't really know many people that main Bards. However, Bards are absolutely necessary in groups and in raids. And even on my 6 box groups, 12 box, and 18 box, when I played 3 groups, I always have 1 Bard and 1 Cleric per group. So it's kind of like a staple of every group when you're doing hard stuff, just purely for the movement speed and the resists, which are vital. And the 5th most popular class on the TLPs during the Kunark era is the Enchanter. This one, I think, is more than likely probably the top solo played class during this time frame up the Planes of Power. I feel like there are more Enchanter mains than there are any of the other classes so far ahead of this, besides maybe the Monk. The Enchanters with their charm DPS and crowd control is just insane for quite some time. So I'm guessing that this will be the most, with the Monk, played main class where you're just playing one character. Like I said, the Clerics, the Bards, and even the Druids are usually boxed characters. but all I can track is how many classes are online at a time, so they make up a large percentage of the population. And moving on, we have the rest of the classes, just so you can see where they stand. Magician is pretty high up there. A lot of people like to start that also because it doesn't rely on gear to start. You can use pets for DPS and tanking. Shaman is always a really good class to play. The Warrior will be your lead raid tank for a while. And then we have kind of some solo classes: Necromancer, Shadow Knight, an alternative tank, but also able to solo. Ranger, Wizard, Rogue, and of course at the very, very bottom, my main character, the Paladin. Does not get any love for quite some time. And as much as you like to defend it, there are a lot of significant weaknesses to the Paladin. However, I play it as my main anyways. I've been playing. I don't plan to give up my Paladin. I absolutely love group heals and group aggro and its group functions. And I'm probably always going to play that in my primary 6-box group. When I expand to 2 groups and I start doing little mini raids, I always have a warrior that tanks stats, so I will power level a warrior up. But those are where all the classes rank during the Kunark era. This is what you can expect on Teak and Tormax when it releases. You know, where do you want to be? You want to be one of these unique classes that are less played? Or you want to go with the crowd and get, you know, for sure in a raid guild, for sure in a group, do the traditional expected thing. If you're wondering what the most played classes in all of Everquest from the TLP to the live are, I have that video which you can check out here. And alternatively, you can also check out the most popular classes that were on the Mischief TLP.